would be a great opportunity for Montreal to host the World Cup. I think it would bring a lot of tourism and a lot of notability to the city. I think it's definitely an opportunity. It's one of the biggest sporting events in the world, if I'm not mistaken. So I find that very interesting that they would turn that down and not have any economic benefit from it.
After the one time you can get something in Montreal and in Quebec to see something that's like on a world level, we get the chance to have it in Montreal, and then they just remove it. They remove the chance of us having it. It's really annoying because even now we have the Olympic Stadium. Like, we have the chance to host them, and we have the metro system that was built for the Expo. The Expo was here, and they couldn't have the World Cup. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense.
I think Quebec is just always looking for something to bring them down. They're not really ever looking out for themselves. They're just looking out for the language and whatever else fits their agenda. I think the World Cup coming to Quebec would probably provide a lot of economic benefit. So I don't really know why they're doing that.
So what you were saying is that it's the culture in Quebec is the reason for not wanting to host the games.
Yeah, probably their outlook on outsiders really doesn't help their case. There's a lot of xenophobia here, so yeah, pretty much.
And in New Jersey, say a smaller state, there is xenophobia, or it's much less than Quebec?
I'd say they're not as afraid that their culture is being attacked over there in New Jersey, so they don't really try to protect themselves as much.
So what you're saying is that these two cities have different cultures, and that's the reason for one hosting games and one not hosting games.
Yeah,
I
probably.
think it would have been a great idea if they did have it in Quebec, because they already have the infrastructure, like the Olympic Stadium, since they already had the Olympics before. So I don't think it would have taken a lot of investment to put into the Olympics, and I think it would have gotten them much more exposure in the city. So if anything, it would have helped them more economically, in my opinion. Maybe it might be because they want to keep it more French, but I think like you can't force like tourists to speak French. You know, like I think regardless, it would have been great exposure for them.
And you're from Qatar, right?
Yeah, I'm from Qatar, and like they had the World Cup like a year ago, and they put in a lot of investment in it over the years. Like it's been 12 years, so it would not have been as near as.
But do you think it's gonna help, like it helped them economically, like tourists? Do you feel like more tourists are coming to Qatar and seeing the country, or is it not benefiting them with the money that they put in?
I think it definitely like increased exposure to Qatar, because like back like before then it would always be Dubai and Iran. Like when you think of Middle East, you think of Dubai. So I think after the World Cup, more exposure was opened up to Qatar, and more people know about the country now, and more people want to visit now because of the World Cup.
So this could be applied to Quebec as well.
Yeah, so I think it would have worked for them also.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first topic I thought we could bring up was relating to sport and culture, specifically like the next World Cup that is being hosted across 3 countries, the US, Canada, and Mexico. And what I found particularly intriguing is that they're hosting in 2 big cities in Canada, which are Toronto and Vancouver. But then in the US, yes, they're hosting in more cities, but they're taking big cities like Seattle and then a smaller city like New Jersey. So I was like, why would they do that? And not, or like, why wouldn't they also host in Montreal, for example, in Canada?
So as far as I know, Quebec rejected or stopped bidding for the World Cup hosting cities, and they cited economic reasons for that. So what do you guys think? Do you agree with the reasoning that hosting the World Cup would have impacted them negatively in terms of economic?
What I saw was that they didn't want to. They thought that the cost wouldn't justify the increase in for the cost of hosting wouldn't justify the increase
In revenue.
For the taxpayers.
But when Montreal hosted Olympics 30 years ago, do you guys know if they had if it was the same problem then? Is that why they don't want to repeat it?
They didn't generate any profit. Like I think it was a net loss.
Net loss.
Yes.
So I could understand why they're not hosting it
Yes.
again, because obviously they've already made that mistake. They don't want to repeat the mistake, and they want to learn from the mistake of why host the games when they're not getting anything.
But then why
in
have
return.
Canadian cities in general hosted?
Well, maybe those cities
they're
do.
getting more tourism
And
than Montreal.
But I think looking at it purely in an economic point of view is not the full picture. I feel like there's other benefits to hosting the event, and it could be like more like maybe increasing the happiness of the general population by like hosting the World Cup and giving it's like a reward for the population kind of. Because it's one of the biggest events in the world.
So you're saying like Montreal should have done it in the interest of its population.
Exactly. Even if it does have an overall net negative, which
They
I'm
should
not,
still do
I'm
it.
not sure about, but most likely yes, they would have a net negative. So
I think compared. I'm not denying that. Sure, they might have had a loss during the Olympics, but the World Cup is also a different event, and it's more. It attracts. I think attracts more people than the Olympics. Well, not
No,
necessarily. Not
I feel
necessarily, but I feel like people who wouldn't visit Montreal
yeah, but I do think
otherwise would come for the.
I do think it would attract more people than the Olympics, as far as I know. Like I could quickly check it out.
I think though that like obviously it has its pros and its cons. So I'm assuming that Montreal was weighing them out and saying whether does it benefit or does it not benefit. Like I said, they already did the Olympics, so they already know how much it impacted them negatively. So obviously they have that on their mind. So obviously, why would they want to do it again? Whereas Vancouver, I think they were successful when they hosted the Olympics a couple of years ago, and I think that's why they bid again and won it. And Toronto's a big city; it's the #1 city in Montreal, and to them,
One city in Montreal.
it for population and
In
for
Montreal.
in Canada, for population and for GDP. So I think they have different reasons than Montreal would.
But do you think that they're missing out on their chance to possibly succeed? Like if they, I don't know, have like not learned from their lesson, but like it could be different this time.
Yeah, so you're saying like maybe they could change what they did last time to prevent. Once again, the biggest problem was I think 30 years ago when they hosted the Olympics or however long ago, I forget the date, was they built the Olympic Stadium. And the Olympic Stadium that they built was extremely expensive. And now they just actually renovated it and put more money in it. So I'm a little confused. If you renovate it and have everything already there, why would you host the Olympics?
That's why.
What are you losing out now?
That's why.
So that's
I'm
also a little
thinking
suspicious.
Maybe their economic justification is just to cover up their
Culture?
Their want to maintain the French language and keep.
Oh, that's a good point.
So you're saying like maybe they're afraid that they're going to bring in a lot of Anglophone tourists?
Yeah, who would eventually want to move here, maybe.
So you think their fear of English is stronger than their economic reasoning?
I think the number one.
It's a I think it's a combination.
I think it's a cover up. Yeah, could be just.
I think the number one thing in Quebec is to protect the French.
Yeah.
They put that over everything. They've
over,
lost.
over economic.
Of course, they've lost at least billions in business for what the laws that they've been doing for changing everything into French. They've lost English businesses. They've lost businesses that can't translate into French.
Mm-hmm.
They don't accept franchises because the franchises can't convert every single legal rights. Everything has to be translated in French. They can't accept it. Quebec is the one that wanted that.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So they don't care about economic
That's a valid
reasons.
point.
So I think, like Mirna said, it could be a cover-up. It could not be, but
do
it's
you
suspicious.
do you think like Quebec values sports and like athletics differently than the rest of Canada? Like coming from the States, like I feel like the sports culture, like even like apart from hockey, like I feel like Quebec has especially like low sports involvement, like because like Toronto has like a basketball team, like you know what I mean, like Quebec specifically, I feel like the sports culture is very low here.
I disagree with that because I don't think it's the people. That the people want sports. They've been they used to have an MLB team, the Expos, and it was very popular. Everyone wanted to do it. Everyone wanted to go, but then they took it out. People have continually brought in ideas to bring this back. It's the people that want it. I don't know why it's not happening.
Because I feel like
it could be the government
I feel like coming
itself.
like from the States to Montreal, like I feel like it's a great city. It's like there's lots to do. I feel like it's a high, like especially in the summer, there's like high tourism. But I feel like there's no, like apart from like the haves, like there's nothing like there's like the culture here is especially low. Like at McGill, it's low. At like Concordia, it's low. Like as a city, I feel like it's very, very like low.
So for universities, I agree with you. I think
But I feel like
Canadian
that's how it is
universities
in
in Canada, I think
As a whole.
yeah, and Canada as a whole, the sport's a whole different level than United States. United States, if you're good at a sport, you become successful, getting into university scholarships, all that stuff, and then those scholarships could grant you education, free education.
Yeah.
In Canada, it's less put on, it's less pressure to do good in sports to get scholarships. Also in Canada, the tuition is
Already low.
almost 75% lower than US. So those US students need to do well in sports. They need to have a free tuition because I think 90% or 95% cannot pay for the tuition in the United States. And another thing is in Montreal specifically, they dominate a whole league of North American sports, NHL.
Yeah.
They're the number one, the
terms
most
of titles.
successful NHL team. They make the most money.
No, I'm not saying. I feel like for hockey, like it is a good. There's a good.
Yeah, for everything else, every
I
other
just feel
sport
like
is.
I'm so used to like every city having like a baseball team, a basketball team, a hockey team. Like coming from like the states, like the culture there is just like so much. Like it's like so like it's just so much larger
Oh,
than like
Yeah, exactly.
coming here.
We can compare Toronto to Montreal. Why does Toronto have a basketball team? Why does
Right.
Montreal not have a basketball team?
Right. That's what I'm
Montreal
saying.
basketball team will be successful, but what's causing that? I assume it's Quebec who doesn't want it. Same thing for MLB. Toronto has 3 national leagues. Montreal only has 1. There's a reason for that. I don't know specifically the reason, but I don't know if you guys could come up with a reason on why Toronto, which is a neighbor to Montreal, they both succeed well in
But
economic reasons.
I guess Toronto's a bigger city, right? So if they're gonna have one city in Canada, they're gonna choose Toronto first.
Of course.
So I'm saying like it's not easy to keep expanding the leagues.
So say in the United States, you
Yeah.
go into a state, a small state, Kansas City, or Kansas, whatever.
Yeah,
Why-
like Kansas
why-
City.
why
Like,
does
they have
Kan-
the Chiefs. Like
Why does
that's a
Kansas City have a
small-
Chiefs
It's a small in the middle of nowhere state.
and they have
And
more
they
than
have 2 Super Bowl appearances in the last 2 years.
and they also have an MLB team.
But they have a much bigger population in Kansas State than Quebec's. Quebec.
What's Kansas?
Almost 3 million people in Kansas.
I think Montreal's 8 million. Or
population.
Quebec is
Montreal?
8 million. Sorry.
I thought it
Montreal
was-
is 3 or 2?
Either
100. Quebec's population.
Quebec's population
Cool.
2024 is 851,000.
No.
Okay,
it's not.
Google's wrong.
It's not Quebec. Quebec is Canada
Maybe they
itself
thought-
is 33
Oh,
million.
Canada's population.
No,
No.
Quebec's population should be around 8 million.
Quebec, the province.
Montreal population is 1.7.
Million? So what's Quebec? 2? 3? I thought
Okay,
it was
and I was going over the
Yeah.
the
This is what I
800,000.
looked up.
I just assumed the 800,000 is right. But yeah, it doesn't feel right now.
It's pretty low.
Anyways, so I think it's the Quebec government, its culture on its language, its own culture, and trying to protect its rights. That's what's affecting sports and not accepting or not wanting to bid or have
Okay.
the games here in Montreal.